Good morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, we're talking fire safety. Firefighting is considered around the world as one of the most dangerous professions. In 2017, nationally, more than 24,000 firefighters were injured. And sadly, about 100 of the brave men and women die on the job each year. You may not have known, but nearly half of the deaths are due to heart attacks. Today's firefighters, though, are working smarter. Fire departments here and across the country have made major changes the last 20 years. Their goal, to have everyone go home safe and as healthy as possible. Firefighters put their lives, of course, on the line every time they face those flames, intense heat. And each fire poses many hazards that come in a wide variety of work settings. Now, every call that they answer has its own peculiar hazards. Let's look back at 5 fires that we've covered here at Fox 10 News and consider the similarities and the differences. Firefighters putting out the blaze at a storage facility on Old Pascagoula Road. The memories of folks renting the spaces going up in flames. The fire burned for more than 12 hours. Firefighters working in an environment full of unknown content. From storage units to another overnight fire. Now this one ripped through condominiums in Perdido Key. 7 of the 10 buildings were destroyed. Several homeowners losing everything, all of their possessions. Officials say the blaze caused nearly $5 million in damages.
It's gotten increasingly worse.
A 2-alarm fire at a Mobile country club saw firefighters tackling a blaze in a building containing golf carts. The huge flames ripping through the building, the smoke could be seen for miles. Several homes are near the country club, which is on Government between I-65 and Azalea. Many residents were concerned after seeing the smoke. Thankfully, the fire was contained to the building where all the golf carts are kept. But less than a month later, firefighters were dealing with another massive blaze at the same country club, and again involving golf carts that went up in flames. Now, fortunately, no injuries reported in either of the golf cart fires. Every fire can be dangerous and deadly. A tanker truck flipped on Virginia Street exit off-ramp of I-10. The crash igniting massive flames and thick black smoke near downtown Mobile. The 18-wheeler was carrying oil. It took fire rescue crews more than an hour to knock down the flames. The tanker truck driver was killed. Those examples of our firefighters' work environment. Surely you understand why we call our first responders, brave men and women, real citizen heroes. And we, of course, must never forget our 9/11 heroes of FDNY. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio recently stated they didn't hesitate to run into danger. They stayed until the work was done. In case you missed it this week, the 200th New York City firefighter has died from ailments stemming from working at the toxic World Trade Center site in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. Richard Driscoll, 73, died one day after the death of fellow firefighter Kevin Nolan. Driscoll, who was cited for bravery 5 times during his career, rushed to ground zero and worked tirelessly in the rescue and recovery efforts that followed. Now, FDNY lost 343 members 18 years ago on September 11th in the terror attack on the World Trade Center's Twin Towers. 200 more now have died due to what some officials call World Trade Center illness. We salute these heroes who gave their lives bravely working to rescue and recover others. Here today to talk about the safety and health challenges of today's firefighters, Chief Mark Seeley of Mobile Fire and Rescue and Chief James White of the Daphne Fire Department. Also joining us this morning, retired Mobile Fire and Rescue Chief Bill Glisson and Stephen Millhouse from Mobile Fire and Rescue as well. We'll hear from both of them in today's program. Fire safety and our firefighters' health today on Perspectives. Welcome back this morning. We're talking about the safety and health challenges of today's firefighters. It's a job that has a high happiness factor, though. A Bloomberg WorkWise report on careers took a look at the jobs that self-report the highest job satisfaction. And right at the top, firefighters, a service-related profession of high risk, of course, and high reward. With a median annual income of just over $50,000 a year, that's according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And here today to share more about firefighting, we have joining us Chief Mark Seeley of Mobile Fire and Rescue and Chief James White of the Daphne Fire Department. Good morning and welcome to Perspectives.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk first before we go into some of the other details. You both are veterans of this profession. Tell us why 25 years or so ago you decided to become a firefighter.
Well, being a veteran, I was used to that brotherhood and that bond and that
Marine Corps veteran.
Marine Corps veteran.
All right.
And I found that similar job atmosphere within the fire service. So I kind of gravitated towards it, and I'm glad I did.
Still there. And Chief White?
Well, I've been chasing fire trucks all my life, unfortunately. We had an incident this weekend right below my house. I was out there working in the yard. A fire truck came down the street, and I got that same feeling I did when I was a little bitty boy. I still love it.
Had to go.
I love it. I love it.
And you're second generation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, your
Yes, sir.
dad?
My dad was a firefighter in the city of Mobile for 22 years.
So it's something that gets in your system and it stays. And I've got my grandson now at 10 telling me that, in fact, he wanted to meet you guys today, but he's telling me that he wants to be a fireman. And so you understand that definitely the camaraderie, like you were in the military, you definitely understand that. Let's look at some of the things that are going on. Today we're talking about the health and safety, and there have been some changes over the years, and I think one of the things that may have brought the spotlight to the health of our firefighters was learning more about what happened at 9/11. Of course, back in 2001, where we were hearing about the conditions that the firemen were working in, and of course with all the attention to it on a daily basis, we got to sort of go through their challenges with them, seeing how the environment that you work in can be one that's not only dangerous but deadly. And as we saw some of our fires, you're working in some cases, unknown contents, and then other cases, you know what to expect, but still a very dangerous situation. How have things changed in the last 10 to 15 years when you look at how you go to address these fires?
Well, we know that what we're exposed to has changed over the years. If you look at 50 years ago, we were exposed to organic products, and now everything's synthetic. If you look around the room, the things that burn now are all toxic when they burn, and so we're exposed to those things on a daily basis, and we're just now seeing the magnitude of the exposures of years ago. And so now we're starting to address these things and trying to mitigate and minimize our exposure to it through decontamination procedures, and then washing our gear, washing ourselves off, getting a shower within an hour of an exposure, those type of things, and then working towards testing.
Chief White, when you think about the guys that you're bringing into the fire service now compared to what you did over 40 years ago, state some of those differences when you look at how you responded to the contents of the fire and then what you did afterwards.
Well, like I say, over 40 years ago when I came in, it was a badge of courage to walk around full of soot all the time with your turnout gear. If your gear was clean, you weren't doing anything. Now we learn the dangers involved with the toxins that are involved in smoke. Like you said, synthetic and plastics, they produce a lot more smoke than natural products, and over 100 chemicals are involved. And there's an inherent danger in this profession. Guys have to understand that when they come in. But it's our job to try to train them and make them aware of how to keep themselves safe.
Are you saying different things to them that were not said to you guys when you first started? Are you saying some different things now?
Of course. When I came on, I thought it was weak to put on an air pack. You know, I didn't want that. I wanted to walk in there and fight fire and breathe in all that smoke. I thought I was doing something. Now, I try to teach these guys, when you get off that truck, always be packed out. You never know what you're going to run across it.
Chief Seeley, you've been known to say also that you thought it was a badge of honor to have soot everywhere and that helmet to look like it's been through some fires.
Absolutely, just like Chief White said, that was a badge of honor for us, is to have that sooty gear, and if you had clean gear, that signified that you hadn't done much. And so I've kind of been I was the ringleader of that. Now I'm tasked with changing the culture to one that, hey, it can happen to anybody. It happened to me. Finding that cancer is a very sobering experience, and something I don't want our people to have to go through.
And you feel that it was due to the environments that you were going in as doing your job on a daily basis?
I do.
So when you got that report, that was what, about
a year ago?
A year ago now. When you first got that, what were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, anytime you get a cancer diagnosis, it's not good. You know, there's a lot of unknown. So, but mine was, I was blessed to have an early diagnosis and get it resolved.
And tell us how that happened, because you just happened to
I
get
have a scan at a Chiefs conference, and
Right.
a routine scan that I really didn't want to do. My wife talked me into doing it, and I did it reluctantly, and then it showed.
Saved your life.
It did. It did save my life. And so now that we are planning to implement that same procedure across the board on our fire department.
And that's one of the things, both chiefs, about cancers and some of the other issues that you all deal with on a daily basis. These things can fester and then show themselves after, like for Chief, had been in the business for over 20-some years. So correct. These toxins that you're going to address on a daily basis can have some long-term effects.
That's correct. I was telling Chief, my dad died in 1978 after 22 years with Mobile Fire Department from lung cancer. He wore that badge of honor just like everybody else. No air packs, let's just go in there, knock it down, let's fight it. But after being it so long, you learn the dangers associated with firefighting. You start to take better care of yourself and your guys.
So it makes a difference, and that's why we're talking today, because we as the public who support you all need to know about these challenges that you're facing, because it's more than just, as you're saying, being a hero, but you want to go in there and make sure that you're doing your job, but at the same time protecting yourself so you can have a long career both of you have been able to have, and as well as to be able to retire and enjoy life after that. Absolutely. That's important, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. And you know, the other thing that we're exposed to the physical dangers, but we also have mental aspect of what we're exposed. We have exposures of mental and physical, so we try to address both of those.
Like PTSD.
Absolutely. Yes.
Well, we're going to talk more, because you brought along today with you a retired chief who worked over 30 years in the profession, and he looks to be like he's enjoying his retirement now, and that's what we want everyone to have an opportunity to do. So after the break this morning, we'll meet retired Mobile Fire and Rescue Chief Bill Glisson. He joins us as we talk more about fire safety and our firefighters' health. That's today on Perspectives. Welcome back to Perspectives. We're talking this morning about firefighting and the challenges that firefighters face every day. And joining us now, retired Chief Bill Glisson of Mobile Fire and Rescue, of course, along with Chief Seeley and Chief White. Thanks for joining us this morning. And we're talking about having most firefighters look like you after retirement, because that's the goal. When you think back about what things were like when you joined the force back in the 70s, share again with me what you were issued.
Well, when I first entered the fire department, the first day they issued us 2 pieces of equipment, a helmet and an old pair of pull-up boots. You went out and bought an old pair of white mule gloves and a fire coat, a canvas type fire coat, and that was all of our protective gear that we had.
When you hear both chiefs talk about that badge of honor, making sure that you look like you have been working, how important was that to you back at that time?
It was very real. It talks about the smoky helmet, the smoky turnout gear. That was a thing that you had to have to be accepted.
When you look at considering all those things, and here you are now enjoying retirement for 12 years after serving more than 30 years on the force, what do you think led to your healthy state?
Well, I've tried to stay active, exercise, take care of myself, but it's a cumulative thing over the years. One of the things I've noticed, a lot of our friends, that have retired, are developing lung and heart problems in their 60s. So it's a cumulative 10, 12 years after they retire.
I understand at one time in the department, you all had to change your retirement age because so many guys weren't making it.
Right, the retirement, the pension has changed. It went from a 20-year retirement to 25, and then the age changed, and then you throw in a 3-year drop option. We're asking our firefighters to work 8 more years, or they have that option of working 8 more years. So we're seeing firefighters stay on the job longer, and those exposures are just compounded.
And how is it working in Daphne?
It's the same, under the same system, state of Alabama.
So Chief Glisson, when you look at the guys that you served with over the years, we were talking earlier about seeing retirement and then notices of funerals coming out.
Yes, there's many times that you'd go to a retirement party, and lo and behold, 2 weeks, 2 months, a year later, you're going to a funeral. And it was kind of a realization and shocked you to think that, this is real life.
Did you hear anyone talking about we need to do something in those days when that was happening on a frequent basis, or no one really knew what was leading to the
I don't think anybody
deaths?
back in the 70s really understood the environment we worked under. It has evolved over the years with the education of, through the fire colleges and things of this, educating our firefighters to care for their safety, not only physically but mentally. One of the factors I think that stresses in the cardiac related is the stress related. The emergency setting that we're working under. Those things have tremendous physical effects on you, not only just the fire, breathing smoke and things like that.
And from some of the reading that I did, I understand that the intense heat itself has an effect on the heart rate.
That's correct.
So you've got a lot of things that you're looking at when you're going in, and we saw the some of the video that we've shown throughout the program this morning, some very dangerous situations, but intense heat with fires that, of course, when you get that first call, you're on your way, so you may not know exactly what you're dealing with. Are guys of old now understanding the changes that are being made, and you're not looking at the guys in a different way saying, well, you need some more smut on that helmet?
Well, I think with the way the departments are running now, the way they're aware of these things, they're educating the firefighters, they're giving them the proper equipment. They've set policies and procedures in mind to guard against those things.
Well, Chief, we want to thank you for taking the time to share with us today. And also, Chief now has his son and a grandson in the firefighting profession, so they understand the importance of it, and also now they've got someone to learn from along the way. So we thank you for your service as well.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. When we come back after the break this morning, we'll meet Mobile Fire and Rescue's Public Information Officer, Stephen Millhouse. He's been on the force for 4 years. We'll talk more about fire safety and our firefighters' health today on Perspectives. And here with us now, Fireman Stephen Millhouse, Mobile Fire and Rescue Media Relations Officer, of course, along with our two chiefs, Chief Mark Seeley and Chief James White. And Stephen, welcome. Now, we've been talking with veterans, men who have been serving 25 years or more in the fire industry. What made you decide a little more than 4 years ago this is what you want to do?
Well, there's actually a friend of mine who wanted to join the fire service. It had never crossed my mind until he brought it to my attention, hey man, the fire department's hiring. Can you help me train to join the fire department? Which I did, and I joined, and he's still nowhere to be found.
Oh, goodness.
I haven't looked back.
So it was meant for you.
It was meant for me. I'm not going to question it. Yeah.
That is awesome. Some of the information that we've been talking about this morning, looking at the last 20 years and of course the careers that our three chiefs have had, they've seen different things evolve over the years with the safety of it. Had you heard anything about that badge of honor versus what is happening today?
I have from veterans on multiple different fire departments. Like they said before, it was a cliche as it sounds, but a badge of honor to have that dirt, that soot, that grimy gear. If your gear was too shiny, you were being ridiculed because you're not really working. So you needed to get dirty, you needed to get grimy, you needed to have that soot, that dirt, those particulates on your gear and show that you've actually been in the house working or on the scene really putting in a lot of time doing the work.
Today, Chief was sharing some of that, both chiefs, about what's happening after the fire.
Yes.
What are you all doing today after the fire?
Well, we've put in place policies to decontaminate at the scenes. Our chiefs are doing a great job on scenes of making sure, and our company officers, of course, are doing a great job on scenes after a fire of making sure that not only themselves but all the firefighters who were at that scene working either dry decontaminate if it's extremely cold or do a wet decon before they go back to their stations. Instead of years past taking that dirty soot and all those particulates and the toxins that you just fought in that house fire, throwing that gear onto the truck, closing the doors, and then continuing to breathe in that stuff, heading back to the fire station. Now we'll get clean at the scene and then go back to the station and clean ourselves, get into a fresh uniform, and then go back in service and get ready for the next call.
Sounds like a lot of changes in the mindset of understanding how you need to get rid of those toxins off your body. How are young guys receiving that when they see some of the evidence of the old days and hear some of the old stories? Do you all understand, though, the importance of this?
Absolutely. What I've noticed is since Chief Seeley is actually my training chief and now the fire chief. Now, since he's been on in those positions to make certain changes, the mindset of classes from mine in 2015 and each class after that, so some of the younger guys and women on the department are leading the way in pushing their crews to think smarter, think about certain things and make those changes. It may have been that was their conditioning when we came on. You know, that's just, again, years past, that's how it was done. Well, when we came on, this is how it was done. Start to think and change your mindset about these things, because the ultimate goal is for everyone to go home safely at the end of every day. But now there's an even longer goal of going home safely into retirement and years after.
And we see how the careers interact with one another, because you were mentioning, Chief Seeley, that Chief Glisson, you served under him.
That's right. I had the opportunities on 2 separate occasions. He was my chief at one point, and then he was a captain, and then a chief over me at 2 different times.
And that's important, to have that seniority and experience to be able to continue the force. And Chief White, of course, you having seen your dad operate, wanting to be a fireman since you were a kid, what do you think has led to you having a 40-plus year career from a health perspective?
Well, I try to stay active. I exercise every day. I encourage my guys to exercise every day. We provide them with gym memberships so they can go exercise. I think one of the things that I guess we hadn't really talked about is the stress level. It's for real. You know, you go from 0 to 60 the time that bell goes off. You never know what you're going to see out there. There's death, destruction, mangled bodies, and you have to internalize all of that and come back and get ready for the next call. All that has an accumulative effect on your body. I think that's why they developed that heart and lung bill, to try to, you know, help out with some of those issues.
Well, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because it's important that we understand the total picture. And we talked about PTSD also being in effect because of what you're doing on a daily basis.
Absolutely. It's not talked about as much as physical health, but mental health is just as important, because as Chief said, we see a lot of different things that normal civilians don't see. There's more than just stresses at work, but there could be stresses at home. Firefighters and first responders in general do suffer from PTSD, as well as depression, anxiety, and we're expected to internalize it, as he said, bottle it up and just be ready to go and help the next stranger, and be an expert on whatever situation they got themselves into.
Never enough time to cover everything, but I thank each of you so much for being here today to share the information so we know how better to support our heroes. And of course, Chief Glisson joined us, Bill Glisson as well, a retired firefighter. We thank you for being here with us today on Perspectives. Don't forget to call those numbers for more information. I'm Eric Reynolds. Have a great week.